Hi, you're watching my channel Helen Explains, and in this video I am talking about Me and White Supremacy by the author and teacher Layla F. Saad. So, day 8, You and Colour Blindness. Now, if you're watching these videos and you've ever said one of these following phrases that I'm about to read, I really would like you to watch this video with an open mind and just watch it to the end and then reflect on what I've been saying, because colour blindness is something that's really common, and it shows up with so many people who have really good intentions and don't see themselves as racist. But I just want to explain more about colour blindness in this video and why it's quite problematic. So if you've ever found yourself saying one of these phrases, this video is for you. I don't see colour, I only see people. I don't even see you as black. I don't care if a person is black, white, green, yellow, blue, purple, red. He or she is a person of colour. And that's when referring to a black person, because saying black makes the speaker feel uncomfortable. I don't know, I don't think that happened because you're black. I've experienced something like that before, and I'm white, in response to a black person sharing their lived experience of racism. So this video is part of a series on Me and White Supremacy. I am working my way through Layla's book and looking at each topic in every chapter in a different video. So as I said, this video is part of week 2, and if you haven't watched my week 1 videos, then I really encourage you to do so. I'm going to link the playlist up here. I'm putting them all in a playlist so you can just watch one after the other. And in week 1, I look at white privilege, white fragility, tone policing, white silence, white superiority, and white exceptionalism. And these terms all feed into one another. It's all part of the wider white supremacy picture. So it's important you understand what these terms mean and how they feed into the bigger picture of white supremacy. Week 1 was quite heavy, but week 2 is even heavier. In this week, I'm going to be looking at colour blindness, anti-blackness towards women, men and children, racial stereotypes, and cultural appropriation. So what is colour blindness? Layla defines colour blindness as race-based colour blindness is the idea that you do not see colour, that you do not notice differences in race, or that if you do, that you do not treat people differently or oppress people because of those differences. You've probably come across it before. It's a very common viewpoint, especially in the UK. Colour blindness is a huge thing. I personally grew up not seeing colour. Until recently, I've never had a race conversation within my family. I definitely didn't have it growing up. The problem with British society is we're all so polite. We don't want to be like, oh, person's black, can't say that, oh my goodness. Like we can't talk about race, but we need to talk about race, and it's okay to get things wrong, and it doesn't matter if you mess up and you have to be corrected. Just listen, and then moving forward to get better at it and correct your actions and correct your sayings and everything. Now, why is colour blindness a problem? So the promise of the Church of Colour Blindness is that if we stopped seeing race, then racism goes away. Sounds great, doesn't it? But we know that doesn't happen. That racism will go away not through awakening consciousness of privilege and racial harm, not through systemic and institutional change, not through addressing imbalances in power, not through making amends for historical and current day harm, but instead by simply acting as if the social construct of race has no actual consequences, both for those with white privilege and those without it. The belief of colour blindness is that if you act as if you do not see colour, you will not do anything racist or benefit from racism. And if you teach your children to not see race too, you can create a new generation of people who will not do anything racist or benefit from racism. Obviously, that sounds great. We don't want racism in our society, but as Layla goes on, unfortunately, that is not how white supremacy works. The problem does not go away because you refuse to see it. And this is the kind of thinking that is naive at best and dangerous at worst. Colour blindness is so common, and it was a belief that I fully had a few years ago. Yeah. Before I started reading more about anti-racism, before I started understanding why it was important to see colour, I've always considered myself a good person, and I see people for who they are, and if they're good, they're good. If they're bad, they're bad. I don't care what colour they are. But I didn't realise that the crux of it is that you have to see colour. You have to see differences between people because those differences are there, and that's the whole point of it. There's a YouTuber called Teen Noir who does a lot of social commentary, and she really hits the nail on the head with colour blindness. I'm going to link her video up there and also down in the description. She says it minimises the disparities between our experience, and the disparities are what we're trying to emphasise. That's the whole point of the conversation. Black people and people of colour want white people to see their colour because they want white people to acknowledge who they are and what they experience in everyday life, the injustices they experience, the racism they experience, and then furthermore, their culture, their heritage, their history, their ancestors, like everything about them as a person. It's so important not to ignore this, because by ignoring their colour, you're diminishing and dehumanizing them, saying like your lived experiences don't matter because I don't see colour, you're the same as everybody else. No, we're not the same. You don't get the same in gender, in class, in sexuality, in disability. There's so many intersectionalities, and race is a social construct between people because of our differences. Layla goes on to say, when it comes to racial colourblindness, what begins as a seemingly noble purpose, which is eradicating racism by going beyond the idea of race, sounds brilliant, that would be amazing if that could happen, quickly reveals itself as a magic trick designed to absolve people with white privilege from having to own their complicity in upholding white supremacy. Now, I think she hits the nail on the head there, because by saying you don't see colour means you're not willing to see your white privilege, and you're not willing to acknowledge that you have more advantages because of your privilege that you hold with your race. So why is it so important to look at? Colour blindness causes harm at multiple levels. In the first instance, Layla says, it is an act of minimisation and erasure. When you say, I don't see colour, to a BIPOC person, you are saying who you are does not matter, and I do not see you for who you are. I am choosing to minimise and erase the impact of your skin colour, your hair pattern, your accent or other languages, your cultural practices, and your spiritual traditions as a BIPOC existing within white supremacy. In the second instance, colourblindness is an act of gaslighting. It is a cruel way of making BIPOC believe that they are just imagining they are being treated the way they are being treated because of their skin colour, thus keeping them in a position of destabilisation and inferiority. People of colour are discriminated against every single day, and just because you as a white person don't receive that same discrimination doesn't mean it doesn't happen. You have to believe people when they say it happens, and they share their experiences, often quite traumatic experiences, and you have to acknowledge their experiences. Lastly, colourblindness is a way to avoid not only looking at other people's race, but looking at your own. So often, white people see themselves as raceless or normal, with everyone else being a race or being other, but they fail to investigate how the idea of colourblindness protects them from having to reflect on what it means to be white in a white supremacist society. And what does it mean to be white in a white supremacist society? It means life is easy. It means you can get by with not experiencing prejudice and discrimination against you because of your colour. You can get away with things because you are considered the norm, because you are considered the default, and anything else is other. So if you have ever said the phrase, I don't see colour, and you've got to the end of this video, then thank you for watching. Thank you so much, because I hope you're learning about what it means and the damage it causes when you say you don't see colour. Now, if you get to the end of this video and you decide you do see colour, fantastic, amazing, like that would be brilliant. And you don't have to throw a party about it. You don't have to post on Facebook. You don't have to make a big song and dance about the fact that you now see colour. You just have to change your actions going forward, and you just have to call other people out when they say they don't see colour. But also remember that the whole notion, the whole topic is incredibly hard to grasp when you've been brought up to not see colour. So the reflective journaling prompts that Layla lists for day 8 are: what messages were you taught about colour blindness and seeing colour growing up? How do you feel when BIPOC talk about race and racism? How have you harmed BIPOC in your life by insisting that you do not see colour? What is the first instinctual feeling that comes up when you hear the words white people or when you have to say black people? What mental gymnastics have you done to avoid seeing your own race, and what those of white privilege have collectively done to BIPOC?